Many blessings, friends. Namaste, and welcome to a crazy week and weekend that we've had with Pluto. In effect, it's the Pluto party. And I want to share with you some perspectives on how we can move through these really powerful transits happening right now. If you haven't felt it yet, you probably will this weekend. We have Venus and Mercury and the Sun today on Friday, and then Pluto with Mars this weekend. All of these planets with Pluto within the course of about 8 days exact. And we also have the fixed star Altair, which is part of the Eagle, the Agila constellation. So we're going to share a little bit about some galactic astrology, some fixed stars, and the power of this star, the ambitious energy we feel this week. And I want to show you the chart so you can know what's been happening, which day as we go into next week, and how this is setting up for eclipse season in February. And also our full moon in Leo on February 1st. I also have an event coming up on February 1st. It's ecstatic dance and breath work guided into the Leo archetype, but actually we're going to do embodiment for each of the eclipses as well. So it's preparing you for the eclipses. We'll journal a bit, we'll get into our bodies, uh, we'll look at how this eclipse might affect you. And there's also going to be some opportunities for some personal interpretations with the eclipses in your chart. So I hope you'll join that. You'll see that in the description. Wow. So I'm going to share the screen with you and we will dive into this a bit so you can see the charts and what's happening. It's a wild ride. Every year at this time, we have, the sun coming to Pluto, but not necessarily in the same week with Mercury and Venus and and Mars. And this is the pileup right here. And so we've shifted from this big Capricorn stellium, where all the planets were in Capricorn, into Aquarius, but all ushered through the threshold of the Dark Lord, of the God of the underworld, of the God of shadows, Pluto. So this week is so strong because it's also the week where Mercury is Cazimi. And so Cazimi means when the planet is in the heart of the sun. And there's like a sense there that that planet, think of a planet as a messenger, right? They're the wandering stars. That's what the word planet means. And they wander into the throne of of the king of the gods, right? Which is the sun. And they're receiving this cosmic information from the great, let's say, galactic star family, right? The sun is our emissary, right? So Mercury goes in and he becomes the messenger of what's emerging right now, right? Well, at the same time as Mercury is in the heart of the sun, both of those planets and Venus and Mars are also coming to the heart of the sun. So there's a big congregation here. And it happens to be that 3 degrees of Aquarius is just a few degrees away from this really powerful star in the sky called Altair. And it's part of the Eagle constellation. So all of this is happening at the same time. And this is a huge journey into what it means to be empowered, to be a leader, to be impactful in the world. And that means that we probably more than any other part of the year, but this one particularly, it's such an important time to be paying attention to the messages that we're receiving. And even if we're not, even if we have skepticism about our algorithms and, who's determining that, this is a week to kind of tune into like what is coming through your YouTube feed or whatever feed, and ask yourself like, what is this trying to show me? If this is a potential message from the galactic family to the stellar family and down into me and the earth family, and then my role in the cosmic tribe, Aquarius, right? What is my element here as part of this visionary, idealistic, humanitarian effort that we all need to make at this time? As the planets move out of Capricorn into Aquarius, that's always a big question for us to be asking is, what is the upgrade? What is the up level? What is the revolutionary pulse that we need to step into at this time? And it's a very we thing. Aquarius season, we don't do it on our own, or if we try to, it doesn't seem to work as well, or we feel maybe even exiled doing it. But this is an opportunity during this time for us to find where we can be most empowered and empower others. I I like to think that, you know, some of the things we're seeing in the news right now, are reflecting unfortunately, some of the shadow expression of this, which is a big shadow because it's Pluto. And that can mean where it's interesting. I don't know if you've seen some of the news stories from Davos. It happens to be the week of the World Economic Forum. What's more Plutonian than that, right? Power over the world through money and how we're going to enforce that. But who has the power? And look at some of the videos, learn a little bit about what's been said. But even I think it was the French ambassador, um, or whoever was speaking, was talking through like glasses that you couldn't see his eyes, which is that kind of shadow hidden. It's always interesting to me when someone's indoors wearing like sunglasses, right? But it's a very Plutonian symbol of what's beneath, what's behind, what's concealed, who's really running the show. There was a reference to the bully being a reference to Donald Trump. And what's been happening with that with Greenland, and again that there's oil as part of this, right? There's attempts to buy out people, um, Venezuela, all of this, these shadows of the Plutonian like thirst for power. And what's really important with this is, when we look at Neptune and Saturn going into Aries, it's just about to happen. And this is for good. They won't go retrograde again into Pisces. And here it is, like we're at the last moments here, just days away from Neptune. Let's just look at it here. There it is. On January 27th, Neptune goes into Aries, and you'll see that Saturn will come in right here on just right here, the 13th, 14th. And this is right before the big, big, big solar eclipse in Aquarius, which is going to be squared Uranus. And one of the reasons I'm offering this event on February 1st, one, to celebrate Imbolc, the return of the light, to the great pagan celebration, but to prepare us, and also the full moon in Leo, but also to prepare us for the eclipses before they happen, because this is one that could have a lot of shock to it, a lot of change suddenly. And one of the things that we look at if we come back to what's happening right now and this week, we have to look at the power plays in the world right now. And whenever we're working with Pluto, we have to look at money and wealth. And so this is something that all of us has probably been thinking about a little bit. What are my, resources? How am I invested with others? What is my greatest impact in the world? Am I valuing myself and my offers? If I'm coaching or an entrepreneur, how do I really state my value? And then there's something else really interesting when I work with my business coaching clients, who maybe are challenged around stating their worth or making their offers. Um, a lot of times there's a block, because there's a sense of how we see money being used in the world in this very controlling type of way. And at the same time, the entrepreneur, the coach, the healer, the facilitator, the retreat leader, these are the leaders of the planet now. And we have to be able to value that and to know how to speak to that value, with integrity and with the passion in our hearts to share. And if we don't step up and out under this kind of cycle, we can feel disempowered. We can feel even that Plutonian kind of jealousy of those who are having this impact, and we're not having it, and that's why we need to kind of study a lot of things right now. When Mercury is Cazimi, the messages that come through are really important. And with Pluto involved, there's a lot about this, the darker side of what's happening with a lot of things in the world. And that could be related to AI and sort of some of the manipulative energies that are going on with that. But then also the power that we can have by working with it in a conscious and intelligible way. Are we using it appropriately for ourselves? Do we know how to partner with it properly? Um, this is going to be really important as the year continues to unfold. But also, look at what's happening with gold and silver. People are taking their money out of, the stock market and the tech bubble and maybe even out of crypto, and they're looking at this is something I can hold, right? As the dollar debasement trade continues to happen, and it's very systematic. I was at the Future of Finance Wealth Summit, hosted by an International Living this year in Ireland, and was learned a lot, and you know a huge sentiment was around the need to invest in precious metals and hard assets as we see so much volatility now, and also as the U.S., a lot because of the presidential situation, but also the reality of having a debt that can never be paid back. We're in a system where the reset is really happening, and the rug can be really pulled out from under many of us. And so taking as much control, Pluto, of what you can right now, and then letting go of what you can't control, right? This is a very stoic perspective, right? Letting go of the externals, and focusing on that which is in my sphere of influence. And when it comes to our finances, both how we value ourselves and then how we invest it, that's something we really have to be paying attention to during this cycle. And so if you are a coach or an entrepreneur and you are looking at how do I, develop my offers and my services, that's something that I help clients with. I'll send a link for the Unleash Your Genius session, and we can talk more about how do you apply your chart, your astrology, your human design, the fixed stars in your chart, understanding that you have this mission here, and you can offer a lot of your services together at a greater value to a client for a greater investment of time, energy, and money that everyone is benefiting from. You get to give all of your gifts. Your client gets to have the greatest transformation. And so start thinking about that in your life in general. Like, how can all of the energy be resourced so that there's greater wealth? Pluto and the idea of like going into the earth to mine. Pluto is the lord of the underworld, and mining is that. And so right now, the biggest news story economically is that like silver has hit $100, and it was like half of that a year ago, and that doesn't happen with silver, but it's the most useful of the metals, and it's really important in AI. So you start to think like, okay, we have to mine into these areas that maybe we haven't paid attention to, but if we don't pay attention to them, we're going to be left behind. We're going to be left with less resources. And one of the ways we have to do this is by harnessing the power of the eagle eye, which is Altair. And again, all of these planets have been hitting Altair and Agila, the eagle constellation. And one of the things about this constellation, and specifically, what we've received, what channels have received, what astrologers working with clients have received with galactic astrology, some of the work that I do, is that the energy of Aquila, it's very connected to that perspective, right? When we're on the top of the mountain, right? We have this vision. And this is a time where we get a much bigger vision, right? We look at opportunities that are ripening or about to ripen in our lives. We try to get this higher perspective, which also can bring more freedom into our lives, right? And we tend to see that the star seeds, those of us really connected with the star Altair and the constellation of Aquila, they have more of an occult attraction, right? We're attracted to the occult, to the magical, to the esoteric. This is a brilliant time on the personal level to be studying your astrology, to be studying your human design, numerology, the esoteric and occult tools. Obviously, working with tarot can do this, but really going into your soul, hypnotherapy, the work that I'm doing with some of that quantum hypnotherapy, deep memory process is an incredible tool. So we're again, it's hidden on the surface, but it's running the show a lot of the time. So shadow work is a big part of this. I call it shadow play. We don't have to work at it. We can dance with it, and we'll do that in our class coming up. But you know, this Altair, this eagle eye perspective. I was on the mountain this week skiing, and I'm going to share a picture with you here. And I hadn't been skiing like top of the mountain like that in a while, and it really brought up the the beauty of feeling like above the world, and there's the shot here in Slovenia where I am, and this this star has been known as a very ambitious star and a star of success. That's why also you always see the eagle emblem like on the flags of nations. Obviously, the U.S. is one of them. Mexico is another one of them, um, because of that sense of the power, almost like the ability to penetrate into all these different realms, right? The hunter archetype, right? Um, but there's also something kind of mysterious here. There's also something kind of hidden away. Um, and a lot of the starseed energy, they don't like to be, they like to be kind of, it's like power behind the scenes in a way, right? Um, it's almost like I imagine like the white bald eagle being like hidden behind the white here in the clouds. And there is that question for a lot of us of where can we access that kind of perspective. Here's a kind of beautiful visionary art of Altair and the eagle constellation. So if you don't know much about the stars in your chart, we can look at them through this lens of galactic astrology or starseed astrology. And we work with the fixed stars. We look at stars when they're rising or setting or culminating at the top of the sky and they're connected to planets. That's one way of working with the stars. We also work with them when they're conjunct different planets in your chart or different angles, like your angle of career. That's a very important star that's connected there because it will dictate a lot of what you're doing in this life, your professional life, or the if there's a star in your descendant, it can show you a lot about the kinds of relationships you may attract in your life. So the fixed stars are extremely important, but they also hold an entire lineage of beings, right? Star family. And the avian star families, right? There are many of them. There's Cygnus, and there's Pavo, the peacock, and there's Corvus, the crow, and there's we've just gone through this transit with Lyra, but Lyra was in the ancient world the vulture. So we have all of these rich constellations related to the birds and the bird families, right? There's a deep mythical history around the bird beings that are seeding this humanity, this very old, ancient civilizations, right? Who hold the most ancient wisdom. You even look on the Sumerian tablets and you see the bird beings feeding, with the sort of pineal gland. Um, and there's that idea, if you read the tablets, around the creation of the human. So there's something very fertile, very creative with this energy, but it has a lot to do with the power that comes from perspective. And um, there's a big message coming through right now. And so, what is the message moving through you that is feeling like most the great influential? Like if you were in front of the king or the queen and you were offering this message to influence the people, what would it be right now? That's something to really consider and know that we're in uh, a cycle where we need to be bold, we need to be courageous, we need to be fearless, we need to be brave. And the success comes through that kind of determination. Um, so Altair would be saying, your mission is getting louder, your tolerance for manipulation is getting lower, your mind is slicing through illusions like the talons of the eagle, and your nervous system is craving to be clean and cleansed out. And I think that it's always important to return back to who is the real source of this power. And it doesn't stop with the star families. It goes beyond that. It goes back to the creator himself, herself. And one of the great names of power in the Sufi tradition is the 99 names that's related to Al-Qadir. Al-Qadir, the all-powerful one, the able one, the one whose power determines what becomes real. And so even the names express themselves through shadow frequencies, like we see with the control on the planet, right? Winning at any cost. Or if you numb out, or you don't want to deal with like stepping up and offering your gifts, that's kind of a repressed version of this name. But the highest expression is when you're taking responsibility for the gifts that the Great Spirit gave to you. And Al-Qadir is saying the power is coming through us, but it's not because of us. Right? And if you have a new client and wealth comes into your life, or you're gifted something, that is the source of that. It's Allah, it's Great Spirit, it's the Great Mother. So it's referring back to that always. And this is something that we forget to do so easily, right? We think that it's this thing, that I hold as the cause of it, or it was that person that's the cause of it, whether that's the problem or the gift. But actually there's one. And it's, in the Sufi and Islamic tradition, we say inshallah, right? God willing. But we also say mashallah, like I was given this blessing, this barakah, mashallah, like because of God's blessing. And I think it's really important at this time to consider those blessings and to not take the shadow of Altair and this Pluto energy, which is, like it's coming through me, I know better. If you kind of look at the tradition, Mars and Jupiter were associated with Altair, like they have that kind of like a combination of them, and that can be very arrogant, very hubris, very ego, very proud. And the real truth is that we are given every day as a gift. We're not breathing our own lungs, right? It's being breathed through us. We're not waking ourselves up, actually, right? We're being woken up. Al-Ba'ith, one of the names, is waking us up, the Great Awakener. So you can look at, am I giving power away? How could I be more empowered in different areas? And how can I empower others in my life? These are some things to consider. You might need more strength, and you can call on Al-Qawi, the strong. But just remember that this is a cycle where, the soul is being stirred, the collective soul and our personal souls. So if this is something that, again, you want to go deeper in, I'll share the screen and you can check out some of the work that I'm offering now. This galactic astrology can be found here on my site here. And sorry, there it is. And here's the dance as well. So I'll put those in the chat. But one of the great things with this starseed work is that we can look at the different areas of your life and apply both the traditional Hellenistic techniques, the evolutionary astrology techniques, some of the shamanic perspective, working with initiation cycles and embodiment experiences, and then working with more of the mythical through the fixed stars and the star families. and the asteroids, and apply all this with forecasting as well. So there's the consultations there. And if that is also something that you're seeking with in terms of your business support or building out a business model with astrology and human design, we can set up a strategy session and talk about that and how to apply these tools in your life. So I'd love to support you with that, as well as the dance coming up on the 1st. So you'll see all the links for those. And we hope you'll join Aquila and Celestial for our guided ecstatic dance. And really happy to be with you today. It's a very powerful weekend. Again, Sun with Pluto, Venus with Pluto. Venus is just ending that cycle now, but Mars is coming in, and Mars with Pluto is the most intense of these planetary combinations, because there's a very competitive, sometimes almost violent energy that can erupt, and we have to be really sensitive during this time to not pushing too hard, but to know which direction. And that's why we need that Altair eagle eye perspective to know where to really get, in a way, healthily obsessed with something that feels like this is the great work, this is the great service, this is where Al-Qadir is moving through me at this time, the great power, whether that's through teaching or coaching or creative work. This is going to be the time in the next few days with the Sun and Mars conjunct Pluto where we get really focused on directing that energy. All right, it's been beautiful to be with you today. Namaste. All the best.